Over the last 22 years, I have spent a great deal of time cruising the Indian rivers, from the mighty Brahmaputra to the sacred Ganges. And interestingly, along with that, while working on building Egypt as a destination out of India, I have also had the good fortune to experience the Nile, both on a traditional felucca as well as on luxury cruise vessels. And it was somewhere along the way that I started realizing something very important. I genuinely believe that we in India have done a huge disservice by not promoting river cruising in India, and probably are one of the most underappreciated river cruising destinations in the world. Not because we lack rivers, not because we lack history, not because we lack culture, but because the vast majority does not fully understand what our rivers actually represent. Because in India, a river is not just a river. Never. It's history, it's faith, it's trade, it's civilization, it's deeply embedded memory. And I would say in many cases, especially if you happen to be along the Ganges or the Brahmaputra, it's a way of life that still continues today. See, globally, river cruising has always been associated with immersive travel. In Europe, people cruise past castles, vineyards, medieval towns. On the Nile, you move through one of the history's greatest ancient civilizations. And trust me, I've done both, and both are extraordinary experiences. As somebody who's seen Indian river cruising and Indian tourism from very close, I believe India offers something very different and something even rarer. Because when you cruise the Indian rivers, you're simply not passing history. You're passing through a living civilization, a civilization which has been around these rivers for thousands of years. Documented history says that around 2800 BCE, there were people living around the Ganges. And that is the difference. When you stand on the banks of the Ganges in Varanasi at sunrise, you are not witnessing a recreated cultural performance. You are witnessing rituals that have continued not for centuries, but for thousands of years and uninterrupted. Now, that continuity is what makes this incredibly powerful, and globally, I believe, very few destinations can still offer that authenticity. Now that we know what we have, here is where I think that India has underperformed. For decades, Indian tourism has primarily promoted limited things like Taj Mahal or Rajasthan or Kerala, the focus being on monuments, palaces, luxury trains, limited wildlife, and even more limited in promoting spirituality, when we know that we are the birthplace of yoga and people always look to us for spiritual guidance. And increasingly now we've started seeing promotion of experiential hotels, all of which are important. But today I want to talk about river cruising and why river cruising somehow remained very niche and under promoted. And I think part of the problem is this: we kept trying to understand river cruising through a European lens. But Indian rivers are fundamentally different. The Ganges is not just scenic, it's spiritual. The Brahmaputra is not just beautiful, it's raw and it's elemental. Now, these rivers are not passive landscapes. They shape identity, belief system, communities, and culture. And unless you fully understand that, you will never understand what Indian river cruising can become. When we talk about the Ganges, especially between Patna and Varanasi, it offers something extraordinary, not because of luxury alone, but because of the layers of experience unfolding as you cruise along the river. One moment you're visiting a quiet Sufi shrine in Maner, then suddenly you're sailing past river confluences where trade routes shaped entire empires. Further ahead, you'll probably stop at places like Buxar and Chausa, where decisive historical battles once changed the course of India. And then the river slows down again. You pass through villages where life still revolves around the water. You walk through small riverside bazaars. You will see people carrying on the work that their forefathers did. You will see rituals happening naturally on the ghat, not being put up as a show for you, but it is the way of life. Nothing feels manufactured. It's raw, it's original, and I think that is what makes it so special. And then eventually the journey reaches Varanasi. Honestly, Very few places in the world prepare you for Varanasi. The early morning boat rides, the temple bells, the smoke rising slowly over the ghats, the evening Ganges Aarti. This is not just sightseeing, it's emotional immersion at the finest. The interesting part is India does not offer only one river cruising personality. Let's talk about Brahmaputra because the Brahmaputra is completely different. It's wild, it's expansive, it's untamed. It's almost like going on an expedition. Cruising the Brahmaputra is less about cities and rituals, more about landscape, remoteness, tribal cultures, and wildlife. You suddenly move into a very different India. You experience a very different India where river islands shift constantly, where floodplains dominate the landscape, where the bird life becomes extraordinary, and you look at the scale of the nature, it humbles you. The contrast itself is remarkable. Two completely different river experiences, one country. And this is where I often think about the Nile. Because the Nile is magnificent, cruising through Egypt gives you an incredible sense of ancient continuity. You feel the weight of civilization that once was. But India affects the travelers differently because here the civilization never stopped. And that is the key distinction. On the Nile, you witness the remnants of greatness. On the Ganges, you witness a living civilization unfolding in real time. People still pray to the river, still depend on it, still celebrate it, still fear it, still believe in it. And I think that creates a much deeper emotional connection than most travelers initially expect. I believe the world may finally now be ready for Indian river cruising. Why? Because the global travelers are changing. People are increasingly looking for slower, meaningful travel, which has to be immersive. Experience should be culturally rich and offer an emotional connection. And river cruising naturally delivers that, especially in India. The quality of river vessels has improved dramatically. Our guides are second to none. We offer world-class comfort on board. Our cuisine is not only amongst one of the best but also the most versatile, but most importantly, the experience itself remains authentic. And in a world where many travel experiences are beginning to feel overly curated, authenticity becomes the luxury. Some countries are meant to be experienced quickly, but India is not one of them. India reveals itself slowly, through conversations, through rituals, through landscapes, through moments, and perhaps, river cruising is one of the last truly immersive ways left to experience this country properly. Not rushed, not filtered, but gently, one river bend at a time.